wants the shot.
Wiggins. Teague's going to have to get it up. Gets it up and drills it.
Okay, so I imagine some of y'all might be a little confused as to what's going on here, so let's give a quick recap. Nuggets draft NCAA championship winner Carmelo Anthony. They lose for most of the decade. Nuggets trade Carmelo Anthony to the Knicks. Massive domino effect. Nuggets draft Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray while trading away Jusuf Nurkic. Nuggets miss the playoffs in 2017 by a single game. Nuggets draft Donovan Mitchell, then trade him away for half a bag of Cheetos. Nuggets GM watches enviously as he realizes he made one of the biggest mistakes of his life. Nuggets pull together and finally compete for a playoff spot, which leads to April 12th, 2018. Some people may say that certain events that occurs throughout human history just seems too perfect. Upon further inspection, they may say that they're simply the result of chance or coincidence. Others will say that these such events are indeed the result of fate, planned by some higher being. Well, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets hadn't experienced a playoff berth in over 5 years, and on this day, these two teams were both a single game away from clinching the 8th seed. And who would they just so happen to face for their last game of the season in a schedule that, keep in mind, was created 8 months ago without knowledge of the future? That's right, the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves would have to face against each other. Yeah, so that's clearly the work of the basketball gods. I mean, come on, it's way too perfect. Nikola Jokic showed us that despite the fact he was overweight and drafted in the 2nd round, he was still one of the best playmakers in the league, and to this day, the best center in the league. Jamal Murray bumped up his scoring averages from 10 points a game to 17 a game. You know, of course, after the Nuggets realized that Emmanuel Mudiay is a holistic bust. This was one of the most exciting and intense games of the year. It wasn't a finals game, it wasn't a playoff game, and it wasn't even a regular season game between two of the top teams in the NBA, but it definitely felt like one. It was close throughout and in appropriate fashion wasn't decided until the very end. Will Barton, having an amazing season, has the chance right here to tie it at the end of the game to keep their season alive, and no dice. The Nuggets aren't in a great position. Management and the fans are wondering about the alternate reality of, what if we had Donovan Mitchell take that shot instead? That leads us to here. 64% free throw shooter, Andrew Wiggins at the line to ice the game. Timberwolves win, Nuggets lose. Now the Wolves would end up losing 4-1 against a 65-win Rockets team, and Denver definitely would have seen a similar fate if they won. So what makes this game in particular so important in the grand scheme of things? Well, that's what leads us to the NBA draft. See, if you all didn't know, every team that makes the playoffs has their pick land outside the top 14, granted that team still owns their pick. And any team that is outside the playoffs has their pick land inside the top 14, or the lottery if you prefer. In the case of the Wolves, since they won that game against Denver and got their playoff spot, they received the 20th pick and drafted Georgia Tech guard Josh Okogie. Denver had their pick in the lottery, and what makes this special are the circumstances behind this. Denver became perhaps the luckiest team that I've seen in a long time, and that's because with their 14th pick, the Denver Nuggets selected a man by the name of Michael Porter Jr. Now a quick recap on who MPJ is. In his senior year of high school, he led his team to a 29-0 record with averages of 36.2 points, 13.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3.2 steals, and 2.7 blocks, and additionally ranked first in his draft class over now infamous names such as Trae Young and Luka Doncic. And with his insane talent and 6'10" frame, he was cited by many to being the second coming of Kevin Durant, or like a really long and tall and better version of Joe Johnson, which I'm honestly pretty comfortable with saying. Quite frankly, the Kevin Durant comparisons for high school prospects are a bit oversaturated, so yeah, bigger and better version of Joe Johnson. But the question arises, if he was the number 1 prospect, why did he fall to number 14? Why did 12 whole teams pass on him in the draft, one of which did it twice? Well, most of you already know the answer. Because of his back injury in the very beginning of his college career. Yeah, sure, there was definitely a concern that maybe he wouldn't have been the same player he was previously, but all these teams not even taking a chance on him? I mean, I understand a team like Phoenix, Atlanta, or even Dallas having a top 5 pick and not wanting to waste them, and quite frankly, yeah, they made the right choice. But I'm talking about teams that were competitive, where there was a low risk, high reward involved. The Philadelphia 76ers just made the second round and they still had the 10th pick. The idea of drafting an injured player and redshirting them for a year was a very familiar concept to them, but they decided on Zaire Smith instead, which they kind of poisoned and he had to redshirt anyways. And the Clippers, sure, they traded away Blake Griffin and missed the playoffs, but they had 2 back-to-back draft picks at 12 and 13 right before he was picked. And this isn't David Kahn making decisions, this was Jerry freaking West. And yeah, they definitely hit the nail with Shea, but I'm sure they'd rather have MPJ over Jerome Robinson. But regardless, this set up the Denver Nuggets to add a future third star, and throughout the course of the Orlando bubble thus far, he has really been showing out. Ever since his lackluster debut game against Miami, he's had averages of 29.3 points, 12.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists and steals, 1 block on 56.3% field goal shooting and 46.7 3-point shooting. Now I know that's only a sample size of only 4 games, but when you put these numbers in your first starter level minutes in the NBA, that is nothing short of amazing. This is a Denver team that's already got their hands on the 3rd seed. Michael Porter Jr. playing like this and really showing out already is only going to elevate them to the next level. A team that can win a championship. And even if they don't win this year, which quite frankly they won't, they've still got the best center in the NBA, an amazing point guard, a star-studded wing that's putting up all NBA numbers in his first year, a 7'2" phenom with a jumper, and their deep supporting cast. The Denver Nuggets are a real championship contender for the foreseeable future, and all it cost was losing the opportunity to get mollywopped by the Rockets back in 2018. And I guess if you want to look at it like this is a butterfly effect, these Andrew Wiggins free throws effectively made the Denver Nuggets an NBA dynasty. Thank you, Wiggins. Very cool. So as for right now, I'm honestly just excited to see how far they can go and how much Michael Porter Jr. can elevate this team. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down below on Michael Porter Jr. and the Denver Nuggets as a whole. But that is all I've got for you guys today, so I'll see you next week.